Hey everyone, welcome back to the L&D Companion. I am really looking forward to tonight's session. It's proven to be a very popular one, and I promise you by the end of it, we will do our absolute best to answer as many of your questions as we can. I can see the numbers picking up, so we'll try not to go too quick too soon, but yeah, just to say that the L&D Companion putting together a careers coaching session was high on our agenda. I am delighted to bring back the very keyboard tapping Cian and Baruch. And Cian's going to be on Q&A, so she'll be keeping an eye on the chat. So please, just so you know, this is absolutely designed to be a Q&A discussion. And we want you to ask as many questions as you can for the session. We've got a session around 60 minutes. We may roll over if there's more questions, and anything that doesn't get answered, we promise you we can come back to those questions as well. Just please leave them in the chat. So a very quick intro to myself for those that don't know me. My name is Fodi Kyriakos. I'm a radiography workforce specialist of over 20 years. I've spent many years working with recruiting for radiographers at all different levels, from temporary to permanent, and in setting up the skilled personnel network and the L&D Companion. A lot of it was around empowering radiographers and supporting the future of the profession. So we have Cian, who's a student herself, student radiographer, hopefully about to qualify with flying colours on Q&A. Before I let Baruch introduce himself, if you haven't seen our podcasts, Baruch and I have interviewed many people on their crossroads of their journey. That's why we called it Crossroads, the podcast. Baruch himself did a number of work pieces, including Uni to Uniform with the British Institute of Radiology, and himself is a mentor now. But Baruch, actually, before I do sort of carry on, perhaps you can just give a bit more of an intro to yourself, if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Baruch. I am a diagnostic radiographer who specializes in chest reporting. Qualified in 2012, trained in a district general, then went to a major trauma center, did some work reporting privately, and then since COVID, I've been back in clinical practice doing 50-50 split clinical and reporting at a smaller district general. Been reporting 15 years now. Adult chest reporting. I do a lot of work with students as well. And one of my major pet areas, which has been over the years, is the transitional period between qualification and newly qualified, because it's a time in your career that's not really discussed very much at uni, and it's kind of a wing it, which I'm really good at. Between the two of us, I've got the clinical experience. I'm a radiographer. Fodi's not a radiographer, but he's got massive experience with radiographers. And the thing also, if you look at our skin tones, you'll notice we have massively different tolerances to heat levels that we're currently enjoying. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you very much, Baruch. And I suppose where I'd like to start, and as I say, I'm sure the questions will come in, but whilst we was off air, one of the things that we spoke about, and I think we thought we'd start that point, is even though actually qualifying in 2012, which wasn't that long ago in the grand scheme of it, a lot's changed, Baruch, since you qualified, right? And I think if we're going to have an elephant in the room moment, perhaps what we could do is, if you don't mind, talk about the experience you had when you qualified versus what you see with the students that you're seeing coming in, and the mentoring and the work that you're doing. Because I think in that moment, what we can try to do, and I'm not saying to anyone that we have a magic formula tonight, but perhaps we can offer some practical guidance on some things to do that you may not be thinking about. But Baruch, if you don't mind, just perhaps starting there.
Yeah, I think I'm going to, if we compare the two landscapes of 2012 and today, Zian was just saying to us how the competition for roles has slightly changed. When I qualified when I started university, one of the first introductions was, welcome to radiography, you are going to get a job when you leave here immediately, and not only that, but you're going to get a choice of which job you take. And that was 100% the case. It was, I think, pretty much every university in the UK had between 98 and 100% employment rate within a year. I had my pick of 5 job offers, I think, when I qualified. Today, our latest role in my hospital, we had one band 6 role that went internally, one band 5 to backfill, and we had over 250 applicants for that. And in that 250, we have a massive amount of international applicants from all over the world. And what our students are currently having to contend with is a lot of the international recruits. It works differently, different hospitals. Sometimes they do international recruitment drives and they're actively employing international, where this drive wasn't. But a lot of the international applicants are really, really settled and experienced radiographers and a lot of the programs, they go straight into having cross-sectional experience as well. So it can be really, really tough on today's newly qualified and even recently qualified, because there's people wanting to relocate and things like that, are having to put together applications and they don't realise that they're not just up against students. And I think that's something that universities, from my experience, don't address quite enough in teaching you how to apply for roles.
I think just with that sort of point in mind, Baruch, I mean, what's the immediate thing because no doubt you're reading applications as well as they come through, right? So do you see some of the applications? So what's the immediate thing you'll see, whether it's a red flag or whether it's something that's like a barn door thing that perhaps people are doing that maybe you could advise them to do better?
Very topical, and it's all over every news article of everything. Please don't use AI for your entire application. We can see it immediately. Not only can we see it, but now most trusts are using AI checkers. So there are certain clues and things like that. We see it quite often in some of the international recruits because, unfortunately, there are unscrupulous people who are charging an applicant and then they are applying to every job that comes up in their targeted country or region. And so they're spraying 50, 60 different applications to 50 different hospitals from one application. And it's quite easy to notice that that's AI. No human wrote that. When we're talking about applications, because we're getting so many, unfortunately, we have to be brutal. Get someone. So just the main thing before we go on to nitty gritty things, your application, print out the job specification, print out your personal statement or whatever and give it to someone who doesn't have a clue what you're applying for. And say, do these tie up? Does this make sense to you? Because what they'll do is spot the mistakes that aren't the technical mistakes. And we are having to go down to this whole paragraph. It's okay, but there is massive grammatical errors. They obviously haven't proofread this. And to the point that we have to kind of go, okay, it may be good, but we have to somehow sort these applications out. Proofread, and proofread it again, please. It's just such an easy way to slip out of a shortlisting process. Another one that is very good for students, especially, you're just qualified. If you all walked into a room, doesn't matter where you qualified, London, Scotland, Wales, Salford, Manchester, wherever it is, on the face of it, you've done clinical practice, you've done X number of exams, you've all passed or you're just about to pass, you're hoping to pass because you've got to the end of your third year. You're all the same in the nicest possible way. On paper, just listing your qualifications, you've all got a BSc or equivalent in diagnostic radiography or therapeutic radiography. So therefore, how am I going to set you apart? And one of the bigger differences back when I qualified was there were still bursaries. So a large amount of the cohorts had mature students or mature-ish students coming out or changing jobs, changing things like that. We now have vast majority school leavers who, for no fault of their own, don't have the same transferable skills in life experience, things like that. However, with the change in generational work-life balance focus and things like that, a lot of the students are doing a lot more outside of their radiography studies. And if you may not be able to say, I've worked in clinical experience, so I can show that I can work a full day, but you might have worked ridiculous shifts during your uni at, sales in a restaurant, things like that, which is staying power. It shows staying power. It shows willingness to work long shifts. If you can personalize your experiences to fit in with what we're asking for on the job specification, do it. I don't care if you play football, but I play for a sports team which shows, and I'm the captain, which shows team working and ethics and being able to, G up my teammates, things like that. That's transferable to the workplace, and that's the things we're looking for.
Definitely. No, that's brilliant, Baruch. I mean, one of the things, and thank you for that first question that's just come through. And Sam, before you come in with that question, one thing, Baruch, I want to ask you is, so we spoke there about international recruits. We spoke about differentiating. One of the challenges, obviously, is even when that's the case, and you could be one of 100 applicants, let's say. Is there anything around being able to visit a department? Is that ever a thing that you've experienced?
Yeah, very much so. I've just seen a quick question that Amanda Fairley's just written. I can touch on that.
Yeah.
There aren't necessarily fewer jobs per se, but what the government has been doing over the past few years, which is a lovely soundbite for them, is we are going to train 10,000 more doctors or 10,000 more police or 10,000 more radiographers, which is lovely, but they haven't funded the next stage. So they haven't upsized the departments. They haven't said, right, we're going to also fund an extra CT scanner, which therefore needs two people at night and 5 people during the day, and we're going to fund that as well. That's where this differentiation has happened. There's too many people training for not enough jobs. I've got a friend who's just qualified as a doctor who is working in McDonald's because they can't get a job because there aren't any. It's the same thing. There's too many training roles. Coming back to what you just asked, Fodi, I hope that answers your question, Amanda. If you have I imagine the vast majority of people, because of the competitiveness, are going to be applying quite far and wide. if at all you can, visit or at least arrange a visit with the hiring manager. There's always a name at the bottom of the application. Contact them, and so therefore, you, even if obviously if you're a student, say I was a student in your hospital for XYZ, but when I went for a job, I arranged a visit, but the visit wasn't till after the application had changed. So I said, I have arranged a visit with name on, and I hope this will reinforce my excitement, my interest in this area of the hospital. Read up on the hospitals you're applying for, because each one will have a little thing that if you look at their websites or the departmental websites, they'll have something that they're a little bit more, oh, look at us about. A cardiac centre. We've just put in a brand new cardiac suite. I have a real interest in cardiac thing, and I've noticed that your hospital has just put those type of things. It's very easy to say, it's hard work applying for jobs. It really is. And you're going to want to copy and paste the vast majority of your personal statement, because otherwise it's too time consuming. But make sure at least the first paragraph directs your application to that hospital and they know you are applying to them.
Yeah, that's really good advice, Baruch. And I was thinking whether or not that would be a thing that would be recommended. So it's great to get your thoughts on that. Sian, over to you. There's been some questions come through, hasn't there?
There has, but I will also just reinforce something that Baruch has mentioned. So I'm based up in Scotland, and oftentimes the hospitals are kind of differentiated between the acute centres and the chronic centres, for want of a better way to explain. So actually looking at that basic scope of practice and the likelihood of what you are going to do. So if you're in a centre that's looking after the general decline but the care of patients in chronic conditions, rheumatology, diabetes, all the respiratory stuff, that's going to have a very, very different type of questions and focus compared to the acute centres, where you might be dealing with, anything. And does the site also deal with pediatrics? Do you need to make sure that you've touched base on that? If they don't touch pediatrics, that's not something you need to revise, in terms of that. And this also links quite nicely in terms, oh my goodness. So I'm just going to put it out there. I'm not great at remembering who's written what questions. I'll do my absolute best. But there was a question looking at, during the NHS job application, the supporting information, would subheadings help be able to meet the personal criteria? So, in the personal spec, is it better to put them, like, here's the personal spec, do I put this there? Or is it better to try and explain it in a free flow way? Like, what's the easiest way for you as someone who reviews in applications in that volume? Like, if it's easy to identify, or do you want a bit more narrative and personality?
I would say when you're writing it, do subheadings. Put the subheadings in while you're writing it, so that you've ticked them all off.
Mm-hmm.
After you've done that, try and amalgamate it into free reading personality. Give it some personality, and give examples. I can't state this enough. Anyone can write, I can care for people, I can do night shifts, I can be compassionate, I can work with special needs people. Great. How do I know that?
Yep.
Give me examples. So little things, talk to me about your patients. You're all students. You will all have different. You'll all have been in clinical placements. You will have a patient that you remember was difficult for you, or a new experience for you, or things like that. Try and convey that feeling you had coming out the other side and going, I did a good job there. What was difficult for me? What surprised me? What was I good at? Give examples. And if you want to leave the subheadings in, as a rule of thumb, I'd say no, don't. Put them in so that you can tick them off. But then try and make it a bit more personal.
Yeah.
Would you say the same, coming from a different, when you're Fodi, when you're looking at recruiting people, you must have some really good and some really bad CVs, etc., etc.
Yeah, I have, and I suppose in many ways I've probably not seen as many applications per one job. But what I've tried to do as much as possible, Baruch, is speak to people initially, like on over the phone first or something like that, to just get a feel and a vibe for them before inviting them to interview. But the CV in itself, depending on what level you're the role, it can be really difficult to decipher because not everyone can write a decent CV, and often those that can write a really good CV may have just it may not always be the be all end all of them being the best candidate for it. It can work out that way, so it's a really difficult one. So, and at band 5 level, certainly. It's going back to those things that we spoke about before, Baruch, which is you've got to try and find those little small things that differentiate you from the other people. So that little bit extra background on the hospital or the trust that or the role that you're applying for can make all the difference. And interestingly, onto that point is a good segue. Sian, I'm going to jump in on this question from Rahila, if that's okay, which effectively is with band 5 opportunities.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Is that okay? So with band 5 opportunities being quite limited at the moment, would you recommend going straight into a specialist role like training CT or sonography, potentially in the private sector, or is it generally better to build a broader band 5 experience first? So, I mean, Baruch, if I can jump in quickly on this one, and then I'd love to get your thoughts as someone who qualified quite quick or trained quite quickly as a reporting radiographer. But so having worked for a private imaging provider that have a very, very good graduate scheme, I would absolutely advise any radiographer who's thinking about any modality work or is concerned about whether or not they would find a position within the NHS straight away, is to look at the private and independent sector. So these are your imaging providers that would give you the opportunity to go, for example, straight to CT, straight to MRI. Interestingly, straight to sonography, ultrasound is not a fairly common route. But nevertheless, there may be more opportunities that might come down the line with that. And also what I would advise people to think about is, and this is something that I don't think is spoken about fairly often, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sian and Baruch, on this one, but I would really encourage people to look at industry providers as well, because even though you are training in a clinical discipline, as what we've experienced and we've discussed, if a role does not come up immediately for someone, the industry providers, and I'm talking about organisations that provide the equipment, the software, the hardware back into the imaging oncology sectors, the experience you're going to gain as a radiographer, many of them do have graduate schemes as well. I would absolutely encourage you to look at those as well. So, Baruch, what do you think?
I think those are all, especially in today's employment landscape, look everywhere. I would. So I'm in the crossroads era of radiographer. Those who were qualified before me and trained me would gasp shock horror at the thought of you going anywhere except NHS jobs as your first role, because there was up until around the time I qualified and within the few years either side, you got the way you did it, you qualified, you got a band 5 job, you worked for the minimum of 2 years, and then you started looking at specialising. Around the time I qualified, a couple of the bigger cross-sectional private suppliers were offering direct graduate entry that you can come in without job experience as long as you've got the degree, and we will train you in CT and MR direct. Yes, this is a great way of coming in. The problems arise when if you want to cross over the NHS private boundaries or change role. Going from NHS to private, as in doing a bit of everything, to going to a single modality, you have the experience of both, because most band 5 roles you'll have some sort of CT exposure. Going straight into cross-sectional, you may down the line, if you want to come in across into a acute setting, may have an issue with your application because you don't have the clinical experience in an A&E type area. That being said, you can cross over, and your experience, you can learn, you can gain experience in either of those two worlds. It's just about your application you'll just have to kind of think a bit more about how you showcase your crossing over skills. As you mentioned, the ultrasound thing at the moment is not an option for straight graduate, as far as I know. There is more and more that you can get your own degree in it. You can go straight in as an undergraduate to ultrasound as of a couple of years ago now, because I don't know of any straight from qualifying unless you're extremely lucky in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's really interesting, Baruch. Thank you very much. And I'm seeing the questions coming in thick and fast here. So this is great. We're going to do our best to get through all of them. Sian, there's a question here. I know you're quite keen to I know I'd like to get your thoughts on one of them, but there's one here about an international. So Cinderella's an international student with 10 years healthcare experience.
Yes.
Yeah, and do you know, it's a really interesting one. So, but saying, if I just bring the question back up, it says, I was wondering if my experience within the NHS. Do you mind?
I've got it.
Yeah, you got it there. Okay, so
I think.
International student due to qualify here in the UK has already had healthcare experience of nearly 10 years. Also, 2 other degrees.
And a master's in radiography. Now you're just showing off.
Seriously.
Just showing off.
But also, hats off, Michelle. Absolutely. In terms of it looking at other international students and recruits, how do I present those things? I'm going to jump in just ahead of you.
Yeah, go for it.
For a wee bit. I'm not fresh out of school. I come from luxury retail and a hairdressing background, where a lot of what I was required to do, other than I got to wear really nice, pretty clothes and make everyone's hair look lovely, I had to be able to read people and look at those kind of situations and deal with if someone was in conflict and all of that. If I don't have something in my CV that I can reflect on based on what I've experienced clinically, also, by the way, if there's ever been a weird experience for me personally clinically, I've had it. So I've been very lucky, I think, or not. But in terms of that interpersonal skills or conflict resolution and all of those things, it doesn't matter where you got the experience. If you can't demonstrate it from your placements, demonstrate it from somewhere that you really have shone. No one cares. These are transferable skills. And I know as an international candidate, there's going to be a lot of pressure, but how you sell yourself is the best way to get the opportunity. So if you've got something that's an absolute gem, explain it, as Baruch was explaining. Like, don't just sit there and go, oh, I can use Word. Cool. No one cares. I can use Word. I happen to, devise a spreadsheet that had all the sums and what have you that then facilitated X, Y, and Z. I can then bring that kind of analytical stuff to this. Okay, we're not going to do that so much, but if you have to work out everyone's holidays, you might need to. Like all of these things tie into it. And I think don't think that any prior experience doesn't have value. If you've done Duke of Edinburgh or any of those things, they all have value. They all show that you're willing to be in the community, active citizenship. Bring in that kind of stuff. That's what people need, because apart from anything else, no one wants to hire someone who thinks a radiographer is just a button presser. Especially when it's so competitive and everyone is sick of hearing that that's what we do. So if you can bring something that brings personality and a lateral thinking of your skills and how you can make them work the best for the trust or board, Scotland or England, depending on where you're applying, I think that that's really, really important.
Yeah, definitely.
What do you think, Brooke?
No, I agree. I will tag on to that. I had this discussion when I spoke at the SOR on pretty much this subject a couple of months ago. What I think it looks like your master's in radiography, as in your qualification in radiography, it looks like from me that it's a UK-based one. That's a big advantage. As a basically what we had my trust had a recruitment drive. Normally we just go out to advert in NHS Jobs or whatever it's called now, and it looks like we're going to employ anyone. What we did a international only recruitment drive, as in our hiring managers went out to I think it was India at that point, and did interviews there and then shortlisted from actual interviews rather than from applications. The vast majority of times, unless it says on the application it is open to international recruits, due to the NHS hiring laws, because when you're coming from a qualification outside the UK, even if it's transferable and you're HCPC registered, you can't just transfer, because everything works differently in different countries. Healthcare works differently. The way your doctors and radiographers' relationship works is completely different. So a lot of the time, what our international recruits had to do was have a middleman. They all came to a certain place and learnt about working in the NHS, and then came to their separate hospitals where they'd been employed. From the look of your question, it looks like you've qualified in the UK, which means you've got UK NHS experience or NHS healthcare experience. Highlight that fact. Highlight the fact that yours is a UK based, but then back up all your other experience as you would, bringing on that vast 10 years experience and 2 degrees. You've got so much to talk about, but talk about your work in the NHS, and that will show that you're not necessarily relocating, which is sometimes a difficulty.
Definitely. No, I completely agree on that. And, one of the things I suppose Cinderella needs to think about as well is not to feel like you could be too experienced, because that's obviously one of the challenges you're going to get depending on the level of the role, is almost to try and combat that particular thing with putting the applicant or the people you're applying to at ease, that you still need to start a role and move forward from there. So that's great advice, guys. Sian, you wanted to jump in on a particular question from Amanda, right? Or maybe not. But I did see the question.
If it's Amanda's follow-up question,
I think it is. Yeah.
I would say yes. We need to do more as employers.
Yeah.
Not even necessarily as employers, but as universities. I think the courses need to be a bit. A lot of places do interview prep and writing a CV, but very rarely have dedicated time for this type of discussion. What do I need to put in and things like that? I think we do need to be better. Short and sweet answer to that one, from my point of view.
Definitely. Can I also come in on that one as well? One of our previous speakers, Lucy Hall, mentioned something that I thought was really important when we spoke about interview techniques a few months back, and that was how to turn a negative into a positive. And she spoke about a particular person that was applying for an ultrasound role, and on 3 occasions she was unsuccessful. But what she said to try and turn a negative into a positive was that the individual then came up and said, what can I do that was different? So the disappointment of not getting the role was that she did try to get some feedback. Ultimately, she felt that as her employer, they should have come back to her at moment 1. But the point I would make to anyone who applies for a role and that is not successful is, as much as possible, try to get some feedback, particularly if you've obviously got to interview stage. So that would just be my other part that I think an employer could do, especially if it's an internal applicant. So that would be my view on that. We've got a question here from Mia. Mia's a band 5 radiographer and has been working for 11 months, has begun training in CT, struggling to decide where to focus her development. The cardiac cath lab is currently closed. However, it is reopening in August. I feel like I'm in an escape room. I'm going to shadow there before beginning training. Therefore, I'm currently prioritising CT and hope to be signed off by November. My concern is whether splitting my focus once the cath lab opens, could impact my CT progression. However, having the chance to train in cath lab as a 5 is practically unheard of. Baruch, what would you say on this one, mate? Because I think you'd have a view on this, right?
I definitely do. I'm going to tie it in with... there was another question I saw. Lily asked, that she has an interest in mammography and is not sure where to start and things like that. I'm going to start from Mia's point of view. I don't know anyone's age or what they're doing or how long they expect to do this or how long it is until you're going to win the lottery and go and live on a desert island somewhere. But most people coming into this career are hoping to have a long one. There's no rush. There really is no rush. Unless you know with your whole body and soul and your mind that nothing interests you except cath lab or CT, try everything. Go and try everything. As you said, the opportunity to go and work in a cath lab is pretty good. A lot of places have pacing or pacemakers and things like that, but working in a proper cardiac cath lab, not every hospital has them. Go and have a look. Go and see what you may go there and find you hate it. You may go there and go, I don't mind this, but I really want a split role with CT. I want to see if there's opportunities of rotational jobs. Don't worry about prioritizing one over the other. You can do them both. You may do a couple of years in CT or cath lab or something like that, and then choose to go and do the other one. I know people who have done multiple specialties over their career, and that's absolutely fine. But especially as a band 5, if you're in your first couple of years, go and have a look at everything. Go and find out what doesn't interest you, so you can rule that one out for later on in your career. Just try everything. What was the other thing? So mammography is quite a hard one. It's a very specialized, because not every, same as cath labs, it's not every trust and hospital does mammography, and it is the people who get mammography jobs a lot of the time stay in them a long time. So when they come up fairly rarely, and when they do come up, they're quite competitive. This is my general advice, again, going back to Mia with CT and cath lab, Lily with your mammography. What I did when I knew I was interested in reporting, drive the specialty you're interested in mad. You got spare 5 minutes, you got 15 minutes at the end of your lunch break that you don't know what to do, pop round, go, oh, can I watch you do this? Oh, what do you think about this? Oh, what do you think about that? What do you think I should be doing? What can I learn about at my stage? Just drive them nuts in a nice way, obviously. Don't get them to hate you, but make them know that you're interested. Because when it comes to a time to apply for a role, that will come through, and they'll go, based on your experience, oh, I know who this is. Because when we get our applications, they're all completely anonymized until you've been shortlisted. We don't have a clue who anyone is. You're just a number at the top of the screen. But based on some people's information and experiences and telling over of conversations they've had with that specialty, we kind of go, I know who that is. And that does make a difference, because if we're tossing up, we've got 2 more spaces left on the shortlist, and we're tossing up between 2. One's an unknown, and one we're fairly sure is someone who's pretty passionate about coming to see what we do. We will pick that one, if they obviously tick all the other boxes. But I knew very, very early on, what I wanted was reporting, and pretty much all my CPD and downtime was aimed at reporting. Out, and when I had any spare time in thing, I was sat next to a reporting radiographer, just asking stupid questions that drove them nuts. So eventually, when they said, right, go and qualify, someone else can teach you, they were really happy. But seriously, make it known what you want to do and what you want to see, and grab any opportunity, especially cath lab or things like that you wouldn't normally have a go at. Go and do it. Back quickly to the same thing with mammography. Because they come up quite rarely and they're quite few and far between the centres, I would contact the mammography centres and say, can I have some time with you? Because if you're make yourself known to them, when a job comes up, someone might go, oh, you might want to look at NHS jobs next week. And currently with funding problems and things like that, your trust, if you're currently working, or universities use elective placements if you're in university, and with funding things, a lot of the time your trust won't be able to fund a course, but they will be able to give you study days. And if you can justify why you're using your study day to look at mammography, go and do that. I've done that quite often with things, conferences, things like that. They won't be able to, if I'm self-funding or things like that, they're more happy to say, yeah, you can have the day, than you going and saying, can you pay for me to go on this course? I found that a lot easier.
Yeah. And do you know what I would like to segue into, if possible, guys, is that, and not to get too controversial, but within the universities, the careers advisors would traditionally say, look at a clinical, immediately into what your clinical career path's going to look like from day one. But with the challenges that we're currently seeing with funding for vacancies, and I still argue that we're still in a shortage occupation. It's just that there is not enough funding being made available for the vacancies. But there are so many different areas now that I've observed and experienced that I think it's worth anyone in this virtual room and anyone who's watching it retrospectively to think about. And that is some of the ways in which our profession is moving into. So firstly, the community imaging. So what exists now that perhaps didn't exist 5 to 10 years ago is community diagnostic centres. There were these things called diagnostic treatment centres, but it wasn't as purposeful as what we're seeing now. So these, in looking for your vacancies, these wouldn't ordinarily be something that your careers advisors may tell you to do, but I would tell you please to look into them, which is look into the community diagnostic centres. I had, so Baruch and I did a student webinar a couple of years ago, and I got a message offline from a diagnostic student 2 years in, about to go into her third year, who said that actually she was really struggling to see herself work in an acute environment, and saw that was the only route for her to go in as a band 5. And we had a discussion around community imaging, around different types of routes in that wasn't necessarily into the acute. And she messaged me a few months back to say that she'd actually got a position within a community diagnostic centre with an imaging provider. So, just that little bit of advice and things to look at. Do look just outwards from just your traditional clinical pathway, even if eventually you want to move back into that. So that's one piece of advice, if anything, that I could give to people in this virtual room to think about.
Another quick
go for it, Baruch.
thing that I've just noticed. Sorry, just a couple that kind of tie into each other. A couple of people qualifying or coming up to qualify, or in their first and second years, and even third years. When you apply for jobs is very, very much a personal choice. A lot of people go very, very early, get the first jobs. Look at the job specification is what I should say to you, because a lot of places will specify in the advert whether they are accepting student applications, and they may put a date by which they want you to start. So in your third year, most people start applying around the Christmas time if you're a September entrant. Have a look at the job spec and things like that, because a lot of them will say, A, need to be qualified, or B, need to start work before a certain date. If you don't think you will have your qualification through by then, I wouldn't say don't apply. You can apply, but be prepared that if there is someone who is going to be ready to start working, because a lot of places are, how NHS especially, we're not very good at being proactive. We normally wait till someone leaves before we try and fill their spot. So the earlier people can start, the better for us. Starting to think about your personal statement and things like that, there is no too early to do that. What I would do as a student, though, and what your, if especially in your placements, find out who the people are that are most involved in Band 5 interviews and shortlisting and things like that, and go, can I pick your brain? What sticks? What should I be working on? What should I start thinking about? That's brilliant. Really, really good. Useful from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Those are the people that are going to be reading your applications. They're the ones that will be able to point you to what to do. But also, throughout your experience, things that stick in your head, just write them down. Just a line. Worked with autistic person. I found this difficult, they found this difficult, we came together. 2 lines, it reminds you of a story, which when you get the application can work in difficult or at the interview. Can you tell me of a time when you got through a difficult experience, or you felt proud of your clinical skills and patient care? That will stick in your mind. So there's no too early to start doing that.
Definitely.
100% agree with that.
And do you know? Sorry, Sue,
given that we're all hammered in with the reflective process, from the moment you enter university. Sorry, I find it really jarring every time you sit there going into third year, but there's still 1 more year to go.
Yep.
Joy for us up here in Scotland.
You got 4 years, haven't you?
Yes, we do. Look at us, yay! But it is that, and it's go back through your reflections if you've had to do that for your clinical placement. Summaries. They're the choice pickings when it comes to an interview, but also flip it on the other side and go, right, this was a situation I had. How would I deal with that if that was my student? Because that's a really great cracker question. They love doing it, and it's really hard when you're when you've never had to supervise anyone, but you have to pretend like you absolutely know how you're going to supervise people. Maybe there's an advantage potentially for some mature students who might have been in previous careers, but for anyone who's coming out of school, think of when you have had to mentor and how you've had to challenge it. It's really hard. It's also quite, there was something in, hold on, oh God, all the questions. By the way, everyone, thank you so much for being actually active, because otherwise it makes my life very boring. And now I'm scrambling, so thank you. Love that. But when it comes to trying to stand out for interviews and all of that, go, like Baruch has mentioned it, I think I responded to someone else, literally go through and tick all the boxes and then make it something personal. That's how you're going to stand out, because everyone's going to sit there and go, I know what Irma is, 2017, and I know that the core values of the NHS is blah 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 blah. Yeah, cool, but what are you going to do with that?
How do you embody those?
How are you going to approach someone who's refusing to put on their thyroid collar when they're standing right next to the II? Delicately and professionally. How would you approach X, Y, and Z? These are the things that I'm obviously in the process as a graduating student of trying to get into the NHS. I've had the advantage of being the person interviewing people for different jobs where they could just check the boxes and that's easy. But I'm not interested in that because loads of people can check boxes. That's a very simple task. I want to see what your personality is behind that, because that gives a small insight for any manager to look at how you are going to problem solve. And when we're talking about patient care, we need to be able to see that you can problem solve on the thing. And if you can demonstrate that in anything you're doing, it doesn't matter if you're going into graduate band 5, going from band 5 hoping to get into a specialization, I don't think this has got any difference. You have to show that your personality supports the role that will benefit the overall team. If you read through it and you don't feel slightly uncomfortable and you're not showing your personality, then you need to revisit what you've written. That's not just NHS, that's across any industry, and it's fundamental to how we actually move it all forward. For anyone who has also happened to log on slightly later, we do have a recording. Please listen to the early part of the session because we did touch on some amazing things. Go back, listen to it, take notes, look at what we're talking about. I'm only saying that reach out. Baruch can ping me, ping Fodi, jump on skilled personnel. We'll get on that. But I'm only mentioning that just because there's a couple of questions that are coming through a little bit now that I don't necessarily want to readdress because we have touched on elements of it. But I think you're going to be able to glean information from that.
Yeah, because they're interview technique.
One tiny one that I've just noticed there, which is very simple.
There's another one that's come through.
Yeah, very simple. Yes, email your hospital managers. International, if you've trained in the UK and they want NHS experience, yes, your clinical placement act, that is NHS experience. Just say, while I was in placement, XYZ. And I love this question. I like the mentor question. Fodi will know. Fodi knows this because I talk about it quite a lot. I think mentors, and I often talk about the anti-mentor. If you're moving on to a more senior management position, which means you've climbed through multiple lower layers of management, you will have seen, even if you don't have someone to, put their arm around your shoulder and say, right, I'm going to mentor you into being this, use your experience of good and bad managers. I say this to my students as well, you're qualifying now, you need to start choosing what type of radiographer you're going to be. And there will be great mentors who you kind of go, I want to do that, I want to be that. But no one is 100% good at everything. And you will say, their technique is fantastic. They're awful at speaking to people, though. And you'll know someone. And I don't, so that's a mentor and an anti-mentor. In my mind, that person is, I'm going to learn everything I can about their technique and learn nothing whatsoever about how they talk to their patients. And I'm going to find someone else to be that, especially in management, as I've been at different layers, being a band 5, then starting to go on to line managing people, things like that. I've seen my fair share of managers who you do need to change your way of thinking as you climb that ladder, and you need to start broadening what you're looking at and where your decisions are based on. But you will see the people that are really addressing their staff for the good of the staff and not just for the department. Yes, as you climb higher, you are more and more department, but don't forget what it felt like to be that rung below or 3 rungs below or things like that. And grab mentors from everywhere. Everyone is a mentor.
Definitely. Yeah. Oh, I totally agree with that. And I think you can, I mean, interestingly, so the leadership roles, arguably, Amanda, one of the things that you're going to find is some of the things that don't come normal, natural to a radiology manager are going to be things that you're going to all of a sudden need to have support in, and things like business plan writing and writing a good business case, financial plans, that sort of thing. So absolutely call in on your non-clinical colleagues in finance, for example, to ask certain questions. I remember once a consultant radiographer said to me the best session he ever attended in this hospital, believe it or not, was one from finance where they told him how to write a good business case. And he said, it helped him land many things that perhaps he wouldn't have otherwise got. So, that's one thing I would certainly do. And always be free, and I'm sure you would, Amanda, is to reciprocate your mentor-mentee relationship with these people. And that would, I think, stand you in very good stead. I have to apologise to everyone if I'm slightly delayed. I did get a message from the producer saying that, so apologies if my internet's slightly down, but hopefully you can hear me. I think we've got time for perhaps one or two other questions. There is something I really wanted to address on here, and I will say it, and perhaps we could do Careers Coaching Part 2, Baruch and Sian, but last week we did a session with Lydia Johnson on social media and the need for radiographers to become more attuned with what's going on around them in the social media space, and to start to promote themselves a bit more. Now, one thing that I would say if people are going into interview is, there is going to be information on that department that may be put online, things like LinkedIn and certain social media pieces, bits of news. Definitely look into that. Baruch, I know you touched upon this as well, but look, just some final thoughts regards to how can we promote ourselves better as a profession, and how can we ensure that people, that when they're going into interview, they can look upon these things as something that they can promote themselves on. So if they go for an interview, if they've attended something like this session, if they've attended a CPD session, if they've gone to UKIO, if they've gone to an event, absolutely tell your interviewers that you've attended these things, right?
100%, 100%. Everything that we could have an AI robot who has 100% covers all the spec and got the best experience clinically and outside of things, but I don't want that person treating my mum in hospital. I want someone who's essentially flawed and can still learn from their mistakes, their experiences, and show me how are you using your experiences and going. I went to this CPD session which was on MR safety. I personally did listen to a talk on MR safety. I've never done MR in my life, but there are bits of that and patient care bits that I can glean from that. I've been to UKIO now as Band 7, Band 6, Band 5, and as a student. And each time I come out talking to someone who I kind of go, that conversation was fascinating and it is going to have an effect on me. How? That's what we want to look at. That's what we want from our applicants. We want to... All radiographers are a little bit geeky about radiography. Some won't admit it. Some are far more obvious than others. And we want that to continue. We want you to enjoy what we've enjoyed. I have had a fantastic shortish career compared to some, but I've had some incredible moments, and I want to pass that on. And we want to see people who are going to be able to receive that enthusiasm and then pass that further.
Definitely.
Just give us a bit of you at interview.
Well, that
I
answers
think
Chuck's
I would
question as well.
also, as my student, from the kind of student perspective, but also I'm an insanely curious person. Unfortunately, Fodi has to deal with this more often than he probably wants. Like, if there's something, I'm like, tell me everything. But you can have as much curiosity in the world and in abundance. What are you doing with it? I would recommend everyone, does not matter if you're first year radiography or you are, band 7 going into band 8. I don't care what your level is. That's irrelevant. Do not discount the power of a prospective email on something that's just got a little bit of curiosity for you. It could be like, Baruch, you've never done MRR. You did a CPD thing. But it could be that you just fire someone random an email and go, can I go and actually watch you X-ray gorilla? I mean, good luck. There's not many X-rays being done on them. I X-rayed
a 2,000-year-old crocodile once.
That would be so cool.
The Manchester University were doing a study on mummies and sarcophagi.
That would be so cool. I also think that veterinary X-ray would be really fun. I love the idea of doing like a little CT scan on a hamster.
I want to do
It's
a tiger.
hamster. No, because sometimes it's just small animals. But like if you're kind of curious about it, send them an email. The worst they're going to do is say, I'm really sorry, but we don't have the ability to do so. But you gave it a swing. You can't say you don't win the lottery if you don't buy a lottery ticket. Just send something. Actually, from my personal experience, if I send what feels almost like a cheeky email going, can I come and have a look at this? I have only been turned down once, and it was because the person was going on maternity leave. Everybody else has said, come on down, love. Can I look at the helicopter? Can I walk the patient down? Sure, why not? Just ask the question if you want that experience. And apart from anything else, it's so much more interesting than you. I'm not discounting CPD, but if you've gone one step more, that's such a better CPD. That's going to put you in good stead about anything about interviews or standing out, going outside your comfort zone to explore something you're interested in is always going to be so much better. Back it up with other stuff. Don't just do this one thing in a flash in a pan. Follow it up with actually some stuff. But get interested. Be
and
curious,
tell
but be actively curious. Don't just be curious.
And tell people about it as well. I mean,
by the way,
that's the
I
thing,
did
isn't
actually
it?
go and get to see the helicopter. I was well excited.
But that's the thing, right? The natural curiosity, and a lot of questions come through about how you differentiate. Tell people, like you said, the geeky aspect, the natural curiosity, the things that you, the emails you shot out, the answers you got back, the events that you went to, the sessions you attended. Tell people about it, because that will just be that little moment where they will see that you've just gone that little bit extra mile. And look, the last bit of advice I'd like to give is at your universities, and I don't blame them individually, you may not always get to hear about the different routes to radiography. We could be entering into the most exciting point of being a radiographer, but what we hear is the noise around AI. We hear the noise about automation. We hear the noise about role replacement. Do you know what? We just need to adapt with it, and radiographers will be at the absolute epicenter of some of the most exciting, disruptive technologies I think we're going to see in healthcare. So, just be resilient to the change. Try and differentiate yourself by all the things that you spoke about. This is going to be a recorded session, so please go back on it. Tell your colleagues and your friends and your students, peers. I know this is an incredibly busy time for you, and I wish you, those students, very, all the best and well with their vivas and their assessments. My final thoughts, and I'll pass you over to Baruch and Sian, is I really appreciate you joining. The art of the possible with your career is that, for all those disappointments, you're going to remember back to those if you really want to stick at a career as radiography and look at that as your experience to tell other people what to do and how you chose to deal with it. So I wish you all the best of luck. Please do reach out through the L&D companion and through LinkedIn and everything. I'd be gladly able to help. Sian, Baruch? Final words from you guys.
Echo those thoughts. Reach out. Stay positive. It's a horrible time. This end of year exams, last final assessments, hot weather outside. You just want to go out to a beer garden. It's almost over. You can do it. Just stay positive, and just keep it. I think the main theme over this all the questions is keep it personal. Show us you. Show us your interests. Show us why. We want you to do well at interview. That's why we've given you an interview. That's why we've given you the opportunity. And I think that's one thing that no one tells you is also if you think you're nervous going into interviews, the interviewers are as well. They're also don't know who you don't know who you are. They're also scared. Just try. Easier said than done, but try and relax with it.
Because you're interviewing them as well in some ways, aren't you?
I also 100% agree.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Everyone, thank you so much. Sian, as always, on Q&A. Baruch, you've been amazing. I can't thank you enough for your wisdom. Everyone who's asked questions, I hope we've answered them as best we can. Thank you so much for bringing them through. Please tell your friends and colleagues, as I say.
So many questions. Thank you.
It's been amazing. Honestly. If you want, we can do it all again. But lovely. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Short plug. If you see above Fodi's head, it says skilled personnel. Google it. Join us. Shoot us a message. We're all on there. I think we're all on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Various
Fodi's
other platforms.
On
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. We are all very busy in our own ways, but we'll get back to you when we get the chance. But please don't be scared to reach out. As Sian said before, the worst that we'll say is no, we won't.
Or we'll signpost you to someone who knows how to answer the question. Like, the nice thing about those kind of things is people are generally fairly polite, because apart from anything else, if they're responding through a professional capacity, they're not going to tell you to sod off.
No, I must have.
I didn't say that wouldn't be the. I didn't say that wouldn't be the undercurrent, but they're not going to be brutal, right? They're going to sit there and say, no, this is not, and you could try this.
Yeah.
We will do our best to answer it. I'm not going to tell you sort of. I like questions. They make my day. That's why I'm on Q&A.
I think you're absolutely right. Radiographers marvel when they meet other radiographers outside of a setting. When they're asked a question about it, they're usually very, very happy to answer. So, feel free to shoot any questions out to people. I've just put the link in the public chat. Please do join us. Thank you for the plug, Baruch. Mm-hmm. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We hope you enjoyed it.
Fodi and I will also be wandering around at UKIO if anyone's there.
Come and see us.
I'm there on the Tuesday. Fodi's there, all three. Come say hi.
I hope it's not too hot in that centre for you boys.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. They serve loads of ice cream.
Thank you so much,
everyone. Also, thank you, everyone, for being really active. It was great.